Hello, my name is Meave Darroux and I am the Chief Executive of Brilliant Parents. Brilliant Parents supports parents who reside in the borough of Hillingdon, amongst other places, and we support parents with their children's emotional and behavioural needs. 2023 Black History Month is the celebration of sisters, and I'm delighted that I'm going to be talking to representatives who either live or reside in the borough of Hillingdon. So I'll be talking to a representative from the police service, from education, health, and a resident, and also a media representative. We're going to be talking about all manner of things that pertain to their particular industries, both locally and nationally. I do hope you enjoy the conversation.
Right, my name is Michelle Sweeney. I am a senior leader, lead practitioner, a specialist in English at Harlington School. I'm one of those people that is a little bit of a skeptic when it comes to research, because it depends on the who's involved in the research and how wide a research they've done. And if you think about the proportion of Afro-Caribbean children in comparison to the white counterparts, I don't see how you can make that distinction. A few years ago, there was a huge drive on, Black Afro-Caribbean boys underperforming compared to white boys. That shifted a very long time ago, but has a research been done that really highlights that? And is it promoted that, in fact, Afro-Caribbean boys are doing much better than white boys, particularly children of the same socioeconomic background? In my school, the proportion of Black students is very minimal. We have largely of different Asian backgrounds, and they make up the larger percentage of the students there. And also, most of our students are EAL, English as an additional language. So the attainment rate varies because of that. And despite that, our school is performing extremely well, based on the starting points of our students and their varying backgrounds. Black students traditionally start with a deficit of, in terms of their socioeconomic background, a deficit in terms of their self-esteem and the sort of heritage that they've had as the underclass, if you want to call it that, and the history of oppression of Black people. So it's really a mammoth task to get students of Black heritage to perform at a similar rate, largely because of the issues that they have to overcome. And simple things like, simple or not, unconscious bias or bias unconscious or not, because let's face it, there are. It starts with things like expectations. Are the expectations of Black children the same as that of other students? It starts with simple things like language. I always say to my students, words are cultural constructs. And as it stands, for example, when we teach the connotations of certain words like Black, the label that we identify with as our heritage, quite frankly, I should hate myself because I'm a Black woman. Because in everything that we teach, the connotations of Black is devious and, all of that, all negative connotations. But at the same time, we expect the Black child, who is called a Black child, to think highly of themselves. Yet, so until we have a shift in culture, which I know is difficult, and I'm not saying that we're not making strides toward that. There's a lot of movement in terms of, equality and all of that within schools. But to what extent is that having an impact? And I think it's so important as well for students to see role models of themselves in school. I must say that my school, Harlington, is the most multicultural school that I've been in so far. And in my 16 years of teaching in this country, this is my fourth school. And the population there, both from a student body and staff body is quite multicultural. So they will see us in different positions of authority within the school. But is that the same in most schools? We should be continually striving to level the playing field. How do we change this? How do we actually go about changing these things? Because sometimes it has become a part of the culture, that's accepted, and it's so difficult to change tradition and to change patterns of behavior. Mm-hmm. And sometimes subconsciously, it's there. Sometimes, it's difficult for them to really, I think they understand and they know, but like me as a black teacher, it's how do we go about shifting that? Let's take, for example, the way in which the curriculum is designed and the structure of the assessments that we have, that being the GCSE exams. We expect students with English as an additional language, some of whom have entered the system a year ago, 2 years ago, as long as they're of that age, they all do the same exams. And they count in terms of the attainment of the school. But do we really expect them to grasp an entirely new language, not just language, but a new culture altogether? They wouldn't have the cultural capital. There are students who were born in this country, and they still don't have the cultural capital that students in other socioeconomic backgrounds will have. I mean, they live in Hayes, for example, and their world is Hayes. As close as central London is, some of them have never been there, let alone gone on a trip to France or to the countryside or anything like that. So to ask students who are coming from different parts of the world to sit the same exam and be expected to speak and write standard English it's just not possible. And I credit my ability to adapt, to my mother really, who never had any formal education whatsoever, very little primary education, but she always taught us that this little village, this little rural district that you're born in is not your world. The big wide world is out there, and you will never lose your mother tongue, but you need to be able to communicate. It's about clarity of communication. If you come from somewhere else and you speak 3 languages, as far as I'm concerned, you're way more advanced than I am, But students become so afraid to speak their own language, And I'm always trying to encourage them. I often tell them, if you hear me talking to my daughter, you probably wouldn't understand a word I'm saying because I'm speaking patois, And it's about being adaptable and just explaining to them the importance of trying to teach them standard English. It's about language in context, not to belittle the way they speak to their peers, for example. That's called your sociolect. It's the language that you use in your social group. And there might be one that you use in your cultural group, be it another language. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's your identity. That's who you are. But if you are to live in such a diverse world, you have to learn to communicate with clarity, developing them holistically to be, good citizens, to be prepared for the world of work, to be prepared to be responsible adults. And because of that, within the education system, it's our duty, it's our responsibility to do that, because not everybody have, I wouldn't even use the term educated parents, because you don't have to have, just like my mom, academic qualifications to be a good mother, And in fact, you don't even have to have role models, because I think her experience of her parenting from her parents wasn't because they weren't good parents, but they themselves didn't know how. So they did it the best way they knew how. The thing that I admired my mom from is that she didn't fall into a history, repeating what her parents did. I don't know where it came from, but whether it's intuition, I don't know. But she modeled our lives the way she saw, and the way she saw fit was, in my view, very, very good in terms of preparing us for the world out there. It starts with shifting that culture. It's about finding ways of changing and adapting the curriculum to meet their needs. For example, in the texts we study, for example, have a mix, have positive representations of themselves and their culture in the things that they study in school, the books we choose to read. Knowledge is power, and we cannot, as Black people, we cannot get away from, neither do we want to get away from our heritage in terms of the history of our oppression. But it cannot be that every time, for example, when it's Black History Month, we're focusing on oppression, because there's so many positives in Black history is world history. So even the whole concept of a Black History Month, to me, is a token. But something has to be done, so I'm not against it. But really, if the curriculum was designed to include Black history within the history curriculum, then that would alleviate some of the problems, because it's there, it's just not written into history. And when it is, it's presented negatively. We're going to hear about slavery and all of that all the time. So do we have to have texts that just paint that negative picture? Because in the classroom, if Black children always, they become the butt of the jokes all the time, how do we even expect them to see themselves in a positive light and then produce? People in general, whatever the oppression is, whatever the difficulty is, whatever the stumbling block in your way, find a way around it. There are alternatives. Think outside the box, but there are answers. You're beautiful, you're smart, you're intelligent, you are enough, never give up. It's about being resilient.